When you start looking at home freeze dryers, the first thing that pops into most people's heads is, what am I really getting for my money? It's easy to imagine a sleek box that will magically turn strawberries, herbs, or even a steak into crunchy, shelf-stable food, but the reality of using a machine that costs a few $1,000s can feel a little daunting. That's why I'm going to walk through the VEVOR vacuum freeze dryer step by step, sharing the sort of everyday details that matter once the box is unpacked, the machine is plugged in, and you're deciding whether it belongs in your kitchen or should sit on a wish list. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest hesitation people have is about capacity versus space. The VEVOR model advertises an 8.8 13.2 lb batch size and comes with 4 trays that stack on top of each other. On paper that sounds like you could dry a whole tray of berries or a few chicken breasts in one go, but the actual footprint of the unit is roughly the size of a small freezer. If you live in a tight apartment or don't have a dedicated pantry, you'll need a clear spot about 1 foot wide and 2 feet tall, plus a few inches of clearance for the vent hose. In my testing kitchen, that meant dedicating a corner of the pantry, which is fine if you're planning to produce a decent volume of dried goods, but it can feel like a lot of real estate for occasional use. The next concern is the learning curve. Freeze drying is a 2-step process. First you freeze the product, then you create a vacuum and gently heat it so the ice sublimates. VEVOR tries to simplify this with an intelligent control panel that lets you set temperature and timer, and the machine even has a visual indicator that shows the freeze drying phase in progress. The interface isn't a touchscreen. It's a set of dial knobs and a small LCD readout, which actually suits me better than a menu-driven screen because you can see at a glance what stage you're in without hunting through layers. The real test, though, is how that translates into day-to-day use. After a quick read of the manual, I loaded a tray of sliced strawberries, set the temperature to -40°C, and let the timer run for the preset 24 hours. The unit ran quietly about the sound level of a dishwasher in the background, and the visual indicator went from a blue freeze bar to a green dry bar without any glitches. That low noise operation is a genuine plus if you're in a house where the kitchen is an open plan space. You won't be constantly reminded that a heavy piece of equipment is humming away. Now, let's talk practical strengths. The biggest win for the VEVOR is its batch capacity combined with the 4-layer tray system. If you're the kind of person who buys in bulk, think a farmer's market run on a Saturday or a garden that yields a ton of tomatoes, you can stack the trays and run a single cycle. That means you're not wasting electricity on multiple short runs. The unit reaches its optimal vacuum level once and stays there, drying everything at once. I tried a mixed batch, half a tray of sliced apples, a quarter of kale leaves, and a small portion of cooked pork strips. By the end of the 24-hour cycle, the apples were light and airy, the kale kept its bright green hue, and the pork turned into a crisp, jerky-like snack. The fact that the machine handled such a diverse load without needing separate cycles is a real convenience that most smaller countertop models can't claim. Energy consumption is another often overlooked factor. The VEVOR advertises an energy-saving mode, and while the specs don't list a wattage, the machine draws roughly the same as a medium-sized refrigerator during operation. Because a freeze-drying cycle typically lasts a full day, you're looking at a steady draw rather than a spike. In my setup, the dryer ran on a standard 120V outlet without tripping the circuit, and the electricity bill only nudged up a few dollars per month. If you're already comfortable running a dishwasher or a washer, this isn't a new burden, but it is something to consider if you're on a tight utility budget. On the flip side, there are clear weaknesses that matter once the hype settles. The biggest hidden trade-off is the initial freezing requirement. The machine includes a built-in vacuum pump, but you still need a pre-freeze step, which usually means a separate freezer that can reach at least -40°C. If you only have a standard home freezer set at 0°C, you'll have to buy a freezer chest or use a blast freezer, adding another cost and more space usage. In my case, I pre-frozen the fruit in my regular freezer for about 6 hours, then transferred the trays to the dryer. That adds a planning step you can't skip, and it also means the overall production time for a batch stretches to 3,036 hours, not just the 24-hour dry cycle.